One morning, you wake up to find out that 1% of humanity can bend reality with a thought, and the first thing you see on the news is a burning city skyline stitched back together in reverse, like time itself panicking and hitting rewind. You realize very quickly that if you are not in that 1%, you have just become very small on a very dangerous planet. Subscribe to Think What If for more stories that push your imagination to the edge. At first, it does not look like the end of the world. It looks like shaky phone footage on your screen. A woman in Lagos walks through a traffic jam, taps the hood of a car, and all the engines around her choke and die as if silenced by an invisible hand. A teenager in Sao Paulo opens his palm and lifts a bus 10 centimeters off the ground, just enough to prove that gravity is no longer a law. You do not hear screams in these clips, you hear something worse: silence. The kind of silence that means nobody knows what the rules are anymore, or who has just been crowned king by birth. Because this is the first rule of magic. It is not fair, and you cannot train your way into it. Soon, the word gifted starts trending, but that word tastes wrong. You imagine the smell of ozone when lightning hits too close, the metallic sting in your nose when fear surges too fast, and you know these people are not just gifted. They are loaded weapons walking past you in the grocery aisle buying milk. Some of them move things with their minds. Some heal wounds with a touch that warms the skin like sunlight after rain. Some whisper, and nobody lies to them again. You see interviews with a young woman who can rewind 10 seconds of time, only 10, she swears, while the anchor smiles too wide, like someone sitting next to a sleeping tiger. You picture yourself sitting across from her. What would you say, knowing she can snatch your last 10 seconds back like a receipt? Economists do not know whether to panic or celebrate. Overnight, the entire idea of work begins to warp. A healer who can cure terminal illnesses becomes worth more than 100 hospitals. A man who can pull gold from thin air for 10 minutes a day shatters the commodity markets even if he only does it once. The price of insurance spikes. The price of trust falls. The air around trading floors smells like sweat and coffee and fear, because probability models were built for storms and recessions, not for a girl in Mumbai who can see the next 20 minutes of the stock market as clearly as you see with your own hands. Imagine being her broker. Imagine how every trade starts to feel like cheating, but nobody can prove it. The phrase echoes quietly in the back of your mind. Not fair, not fair. Governments move slower than panic. There are emergency sessions, closed doors, grainy camera flashes in marble hallways. 1% sounds small until you remember there are 80 million of them. That is more than many countries have. Politicians start using new words on television: registration, licensing, defensive parity. You watch a press conference where the current president of the United States announces a voluntary global registry of magical citizens, framed as an opportunity, a gateway to resources and support. The camera zooms in, and you notice the fine tremble at the corner of his mouth, the way he pauses just a heartbeat too long before the word voluntary. You wonder how long that word will survive the next crisis. In some places, the registry becomes a badge of pride. In others, it becomes a hunting list. In a small town, a boy who can ignite objects with his eyes finds his family's porch painted with slurs, the smell of gasoline heavy in the air one night. In a glittering capital, a woman who can create illusions is hired to design immersive ad campaigns that make people taste the perfume they are buying. Corporations enter the game. Talent agencies pivot to magical management. Banks offer gift-friendly financial products that trade on the future value of abilities. If you can grow crops 10 times faster on a small patch of land, do you owe a higher tax? Do you own the miracle, or does your government? Not fair, not fair. The gap between the gifted and everyone else becomes visible not just in wealth, but in architecture. You see new neighborhoods rise with walls that shimmer faintly in the sunlight, reinforced with spells that repel intruders and slow bullets to a crawl. Inside, the gifted walk without looking over their shoulders. Outside, ordinary people line up for jobs as personal aides, security staff, drivers, to those who can step through walls or turn invisible for a few seconds at a time. The economy tilts toward their needs. Universities build arcane economics departments to study how a single pyrokinetic can replace an entire energy plant. If one healer can cure 100 people a day, do 1,000 doctors become obsolete, or do they become her assistants? Where do you fit if your only power is a tired body and a cluttered mind? Social media, already a bonfire, erupts. Hashtags split the world into factions. Some celebrate the gifted as humanity's next step, posting videos of miraculous rescues and impossible art. A dancer in Tokyo levitates mid-spin, slow and weightless, as cherry blossoms swirl around her in a conjured breeze that smells faintly of sugar and ash. Others call for strict controls, sharing grainy clips of a bar fight that ends with a single word and 6 men on the floor, clutching their throats as invisible fingers close. Every viral video is an argument. Every argument is a threat. You scroll, your thumb numb, and the thought returns. You whisper it this time, "Not fair, not fair." Religions fracture and bloom. Some faith leaders denounce magic as temptation and trial, a new form of hubris that must be controlled. Others claim the gifted as living angels or saints, proof that the divine walks among humans. Entire movements rise around certain magicians. A woman in Nigeria who can neutralize violence within a 50-meter radius becomes the center of a non-violent revolution. Protesters march through police lines, their anger humming in their bones. Yet no fists rise, no batons swing. Because in her presence, the urge to harm drains away like water poured into sand. What is freedom in a world where a single person can reach into your nervous system and quiet your rage? What would you sacrifice to have her in your city, calming riots before they begin? Politics becomes theater in a new way. Campaign ads feature candidates shaking hands with registered magicians. Some run on law and order, promising strict magical oversight. Others campaign on integration, arguing that pushing the gifted to the margins will only radicalize them. Secretly, almost every serious political operation tries to secure magical backing. A campaign strategist who can subtly nudge emotions during a televised debate is priceless. Imagine watching a speech and feeling warmth for a candidate you hated yesterday, without any idea that someone in a van outside is weaving your mood like thread. How do you cast a free vote when feelings themselves can be tuned? Then comes the first major magical crime on live television. A group of 3 gifted individuals walk into a central bank, and within seconds, the cameras go wild. One freezes security guards in place, not as stone, but as statues of numb flesh, eyes wide, breathing shallow. Another slips through vault doors as if the metal were water. The third simply stands there, absorbing every bullet fired into a hollow silence that smells like burnt metal and cold dust. They do not kill anyone. They do not need to. The money vanishes into nothing, or somewhere else, nobody is sure. Overnight, the conversation shifts. If a small team can do this, what can 100 do? 1,000? Where do you run when walls and laws no longer mean what they used to mean? Militaries respond in the only language they know. Recruitment offices open special lines for the gifted. Serve your country, the posters say. Channel your power with purpose. Special units rise, blending drones, data analysts, and magicians who can disrupt electronics with a gesture or scout ahead without being seen. On the other side of borders, other governments do the same. A cold war of potential ignites. Border clashes become tense not only because of troops, but because somewhere out there, unseen, a single gifted operative might tip the balance. Do you sleep soundly at night knowing that somewhere a man can listen to conversations through concrete walls simply by touching them? How far would you go to feel safe again? Black markets bloom. Unsanctioned magical services become the underground economy of choice. Need your rival's memory of a meeting dulled, just enough that they forget one crucial detail? There is someone who can blur the edges of a day. Need your crops to grow despite poisoned soil? There is a woman who can coax fertility into dead ground in exchange for lifetime loyalty. The smell of these places is always the same in your imagination. Sweat, incense, old wires. A whisper that crawls along the back of your neck. Every transaction carries a price that is not written in numbers. What happens to your soul, your sense of self, when you outsource your problems to people who can rewrite reality? Inevitably, resistance forms. Not everyone wants to live under the shadow of the gifted. Grassroots movements rise, not against magic itself, but against the structures that let 1% write new rules. They lobby for baseline rights, laws that protect ordinary citizens from magical coercion. They push for mandated null zones in courts and parliaments, areas shielded by technology and counter-magic where no powers can function. Developers race to invent gadgets that dampen or disrupt abilities, clumsy prototypes that buzz and crackle, smelling of hot plastic and ozone. You imagine walking into one of those zones, feeling the air change, watching a gifted stranger hesitate for the first time in their life. Would you feel safer, or would you wonder what happens the moment you step back outside? Then, something unexpected happens. The first generation of children born to mixed families comes of age. Some have powers, some do not. Suddenly, the line between gifted and ordinary is not just out there, it is at your dinner table. A brother who can mend broken bones with a glance sits across from a sister who cannot. Parents look at one child with awe and at the other with a quieter, more fragile love. New resentments flicker in the corners of family photos. New forms of tenderness appear too. A boy who can levitate objects uses his power to help his wheelchair-bound father reach shelves, to lift him gently into bed. In these small, private moments, the world feels less like a battlefield and more like a negotiation. Could this be the bridge that saves you, or the crack that splits you even further apart? Education shifts. Special academies for the gifted open, promising to teach ethics and control. They look shining and safe from the outside, all glass and greenery, but inside, the atmosphere hums with pressure. Young magicians sit in classrooms where they learn not just math and literature, but acceptable applications of their abilities. They are told when to use their gifts and when not to. They are graded on restraint. At night, some of them sneak out, testing limits in empty parking lots and frozen fields, practicing tricks that are not on the syllabus. You remember being a teenager and the urge to push every boundary, and you ask yourself, if you could stop time for 30 seconds, would you resist using it to change one exam, one kiss, one mistake? In all this chaos, something like beauty survives. Artists who can shape light and sound directly into the air create performances that leave audiences weeping. Poets pull emotions from their own chests and hang them in the room like lanterns, so everyone can feel the exact burn of a memory. Architects collaborate with geomancers to design cities that breathe, shifting walls to let in more sun, tilting streets to guide floodwaters away from homes. For a moment, in these visions, magic feels less like a weapon and more like a new color added to the human palette. You stand in a crowd at one of these events, feel music wrap around your skull like warm water, and you think, maybe this is worth all the fear, all the risk. Then you remember the bank heist, the burning porch, the trembling president, and that old whisper returns, "Not fair, not fair." Eventually, the world settles into something that looks like stability from a distance. There are laws, departments, treaties, insurance policies, social norms. You know which neighborhoods are saturated with gifted influence and which try to keep it out. You carry a small device in your pocket that supposedly alerts you when strong magical fields are active nearby, though most days it stays dark. You go to work, you come home. Your life is still your life. Yet, on certain nights, when the sky glows sickly orange with city light and a cold wind slides down the streets, you cannot shake the feeling that reality has become thin, that beneath the routines and the legislation, the planet hums with a barely contained storm. One evening, as you sit by a window, you watch rain fall in crooked lines. For a second, the drops hang in mid-air, then reverse, flying back up into the clouds like the sky is rethinking its decision. Somewhere in the building next door, someone laughs softly. A gifted neighbor, bored, playing with the weather for a heartbeat. You feel the hair on your arms rise. Your coffee tastes suddenly metallic, like you have bitten your tongue. You realize that this is the world now. A place where miracles and threats share the same heartbeat, where 1% of your species can rearrange the script at any moment. So the real question is no longer, what if magic was real? The real question is, when power is born from blood instead of earned through effort, who decides what is right? Is it the 99% clinging to old laws of gravity and sweat, or the 1% who can rewrite those laws as easily as you rewrite a sentence? When the next crisis comes, when the next bank falls, the next city burns, or the next miracle saves 1,000,000 lives, where will you stand? What would you do now if a stranger knocked on your door and told you that your child, your sibling, your partner belongs to that 1%? Out there, somewhere, a young magician walks alone down a dark street. Their breath clouds the air. Their fingers twitch. They can feel the world respond, subtle and eager, like fabric waiting to be cut. Their choices will shape economies, rewrite social contracts, challenge governments. They are scared. They are thrilled. They are human. As the streetlights flicker and the night tilts around them, the world holds its breath, because every step they take is a step into a future that can never again pretend to be ordinary. Subscribe to Think What If for more worlds you should never forget.